Hello everyone. Hola a todos y a todas. Es un placer abrir esta sesión de hoy, martes 27 de julio. Bienvenidos al segundo día de Food Design Festival, un evento que busca reunir diversos profesionales del sector del food design y la alimentación. Ayer fue un día intenso, donde pudimos vivir y escuchar a muchos profesionales. Vimos experiencias personales como la de Nacho, de Juan Creix, Francesca Zampolo o Emily Baltz. Hablamos sobre resiliencia, sobre género, lo natural y lo sostenible. La importancia de hablar del food design no solo como un espacio de experimentación, como lo hemos visto muchas veces, sino como un medio político también. Welcome everyone to the second day of Food Design Festival. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. An event that tries to put together different minds from different sectors to talk about food design and everything that is around. So yesterday was an intense day for everyone. We had the pleasure to listen to professional experiences and personal experience from different designers, artists related, like Nacho de Juan Creix, for example, or Doctora Francesca Zampolo or Emily Baltz. And we talk about resilience, we talk about gender, we talk about the natural and sustainable path, and also the importance of food design, not just as a space of experimentation as we know it, but also as a political tool and media. So today, in this personal part, we'll talk about education. That is a part also that I'm really interested in. So it's a pleasure to talk about this. Understanding also that education is a tool and a powerful tool to really have impact in the future and in the food industry. So in order to dig more about this topic, we invited really experts from the field. So I would like to introduce who is going to be in this panel today, this morning. So we have the pleasure to be with Ricardo Bonacho, that has a degree and a postgraduate in communication design and in new media. He's a doctorate in the specialty of food design. He's a director and master of the Master of Food Design in ESTE, and he's a professor and member of the Executive and Scientific Commission in the Master of Innovation in Science and Culinary Arts, again in the Superior Institute of Tourism and Hospitality of Estoril in Portugal. So welcome, Ricardo, and thanks for coming. Also, we have the pleasure to be with Sonia Massari, that has over 20 years of experience as a researcher, lecturer, consultant, and designer in the fields of education, sustainable food and design, also in innovation and agri-food sector. Since 2012, she has been a scientific consultant and senior researcher for the Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition Foundation, to promote food education and new opportunities for young students and researchers in the theme of sustainability, using also empathy as a research tool and as a way to learn and connect. That also is really interesting. So welcome, Sonia. We also have Julia Kunkel. She's the new director of the Food Design Lab at L'École de Design Nantes Atlantique. She believes in sustainable food, respectful of the world and mankind, committed in the tune with our contemporary lifestyle. Also, Julia, it's a pleasure to have you here. We have Fabio Parasecoli. He's a professor of food studies at the nutrition department at the University of New York. His main research explored the intersection between food and cultural politics, having focus on media and design. So yeah, it's a pleasure also to have you, Fabio, here. And we have also Mariana, who is a study abroad director at Elisava, co-founder of Tactica, expert in graphic design, specialty in the field of food packaging industry and food design, branding and identity. She's now doing a PhD also in food design with the Faculty of Architecture in Lisbon University. Mariana is going to lead this session. And yeah, it's just a pleasure. So I welcome you all to enjoy today's session.
Hello. Thank you very much, Gastón, for your words. It is a pleasure that you presented us because we know each other from Elisava, and it's a pleasure to see you here. So welcome, everyone. Welcome all the members on the table today. Like Gastón said, Julia, Sonia, Ricardo, and Fabio, and me. It is a pleasure to share this day with such a good friends and such an important people into the academy and food design world. And today, I will start like really saying thank you to Food Design Festival for inviting us to doing such a session. It's very important education related to food design, that it's a field that it's growing. So the session of today will be about, like you saw on the title, to define who a food designer is, where a food designer works, what a food designer do, and how a food designer becomes a food designer. So that's the goal of today, and we have this session to do it. So let's play. This is going to be a game in which I would like each of you to play, because I think that learning by doing is more interesting than learning by listening just. So we will listen each of our guests today, but after we all the participants participate into a survey that we have proposed. So now on the chat, you will find on the global chat, you will find the link to go to this survey that we have prepared. I will put some music meanwhile, and so you will be able to listen to the music and answer the survey. And then I will introduce each of the players today before. So the players that we have today are all of you listening, but we have 4 players on the stage, and I would like them to present themselves, like if they are the main players on this game. So I'll give you the word to Fabio Parasecoli to say hello.
Hello, I am Fabio Parasecoli, I'm Italian living in New York, and I'm a professor who studies food design.
Great, thank you, Fabio. So Ricardo Bonacho. Hi, Ricardo, how are you?
Hello, good morning. I'm Ricardo. I'm in Lisbon, Portugal, and I'm also professor in food design at Estoril Institute for Tourism and Hotel Studies.
Great, thank you very much. Hi, Sonia. Welcome today. How are you doing?
Hi. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Mariana. So I'm not a food designer. I'm a professor, I'm a researcher, I'm a consultant. And my mission in the past 20 years was to teach how to use design method to design sustainable systems through food.
Great, thank you. And the last player is Julia Kunkel. Hi, Julia. How are you doing?
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be with you this morning. And I'm a product designer, but I was working long time as brand designer, global designer, and in industrial field. And now I'm teaching at the master in Nantes in the École of Design. And I'm professor for my master's called Food Design Lab. So our topic is really food for tomorrow.
Great, super. So thank you very much for your presentation. As you see, we're an international table from Italy, Portugal, United States, France, and me in Spain. So it's very interesting how each of us in our countries and in our places of work and universities where we educate people into food design, we see them and we see how they are formed and they study, and then afterwards they go to work somewhere and they do something and they become someone. So that's the main goal today, to define who they are. So as I was saying before, let's start to play. So I call everyone connected to this session to go to the link that it's on the chat, and then from that, again, you will listen to this music, because I would like food designers to be people that anyone can take the eyes out of, because now we know that society doesn't know a lot about food design. When we say we're a food designer, we don't know what they think about. So this is what we're going to describe. So meanwhile, the music sounds, you have time to answer the survey. So time starts now.
No puedo creer que es verdad, que tanta felicidad haya llegado hasta mí y simplemente aprendí que el cielo siento alcanzar pensando que voy a amar. Por eso no puedo así quitar mis ojos de ti. Tú tienes que perdonar mi insolencia al mirar. Toda mi culpa no es, me he enamorado esta vez. Difícil es insistir, sin ti no puedo vivir. Por eso no puedo así quitar mis ojos de ti. Te quiero mucho y bien comprende lo que quiero mucho. Con toda intensidad te necesito, te digo la verdad. Te quiero mucho y pido sin cesar que no me dejes. Hoy que ya te encontré, pues quiero amarte siempre, quiero amarte. No puedo creer que es verdad que tanta felicidad haya llegado hasta mí y simplemente aprendí que el cielo siento alcanzar pensando que voy a amar. Por eso no puedo así quitar mis ojos de ti. Te quiero mucho y bien comprendido, te quiero mucho. Con toda intensidad te necesito, te digo la verdad. Te quiero mucho y pido sin cesar que no me dejes. Hoy que ya te encontré, pues quiero amarte siempre, quiero amarte. No puedo creer que es verdad que tanta felicidad haya llegado hasta mí y simplemente aprendí que el cielo siento alcanzar pensando que voy a amar. Por eso no puedo así quitar mis ojos de ti. Quitar mis ojos de ti.
Okay, time is over. So I guess that you've seen a lot of different answers and you had to choose one. And I know that it was very difficult because we have to decide in between many things that we think that are interesting to answer. So maybe we could answer like all of them, but it's good that we choose which is the one that we define like more interesting. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna go to the results and we're gonna talk and share about what everyone said. And we will start thinking about who can be a food designer. So the point is this, the point is, who can be a food designer? I mean, anyone can say and wake up one day and say, hello, I'm a food designer. Or could anyone start a degree saying I'm a food designer or I want to be a food designer into a degree? Is there any degree now working on the world? Or do we have to have a previous education into some field of design or food? And then from that, we can start the master's, or that's in terms of education. Instead, talking exactly who can be, anyone? So I would like to ask before to start to Sonia Massari and to talk 2 minutes about what do you think, Sonia, that who can be a food designer?
Thank you, Mariana. I think this is a very controversial question that started to be analyzed in 2015. Actually, many conferences were organized really to understand what who is the food designer. And I've been thinking about that a lot because I'm teaching in many schools and masters on food design. And I believe that I don't feel comfortable in the same way to say that my students in, for example, innovation and sustainability, so people that are not taking a master or a course specifically on food design, so something related with, but not really in the field, they can be called food designer at the end. They are just students in another department that learn how to use design in the food field to make sustainable systems. So meanwhile, I think the food design students, so students who goes to a master, really need to be ensured by the school, need to trust the school on the fact that when they are out, they will get profile. So they will receive the title, no? Now, after this time studying, you are a food designer. On the other side, I think, because this is like a changing thinking, like every, design goes with society. So we need really to understand where and when we are thinking about this kind of title and profile. I think I would actually shape the question differently, and maybe instead of asking who is a food designer, asking who can use design in the food sector, which means that I'm trying to, in a way, destroy the title of food design to give more dignity and more power to the tool of the design and the method of design for changing the food system. So in a way, I'm answering, but I'm also destroying the question with a different perspective.
Great, good. So I invite now Fabio Parasecoli to tell us your opinion about who can be a food designer, which is the profile, if there is one, of course.
Here we go. So I do think that as the food system becomes more complex, we will need figures with specific skills, specific profiles. How do you become a food designer, or who becomes a food designer? For me, that can be two focuses mostly. So people that have already a background in design, and maybe people that have a background in the culinary, in food studies, but they all bring different skills and different kinds of education. So, and that's also how I answered my following questions. Maybe we'll discuss it later. I do think that there is the need for specific training in which these people with different backgrounds can all work together and learn how to be specifically a food designer. But their background could be in design, in the culinary, even in food science or agricultural sciences. The important thing is that after you get your basic formation, then you go to a level up to focus specifically on food design as its own specific set of skills, of methods, of practices, and in terms of professional life.
Okay, also very interesting, very different point of view. Great. So now I invite Julia Kunkel to tell us your opinion of who could be a food designer.
I think it's a very interesting question and not easy to answer. I think for me, I'm firstly treating with designers. I think the design profession has to be, there has to be a background of really a design master, really skills of designer, because in its in the definition of a designer, you have to be curious, you have to be transversal, you have to have a lot of skills, and you can get any topic that you want. So firstly, you have to really be aware of all the skills of a designer. And then you add a topic, which is food. And what we do is, we try to do is to give as much as skills and methods and informations and way to treat this material in specific, but with the tools of a designer. So I think you can come from each background that you want, but to call yourself food designer, you have design inside. It's not only just if you have a master or if you're a cook, or it can be really great skill, but you have to add. You already have the food, but you have to add the design. If you have the design, you have to add the food. So it's really the two of the tools. And even in my career, I see a lot of people that switch from one thing to the other. I did food, I did other things, and I come back. It's not a protected area or protected, how you say, name or skill or direction. I think it's also very fluid, and this is also important for designers to be transversal and be capable to apply the same system that you learn from one field to translate it to another field, and this can be really enriching. But for me, the base is really to have the first of the tools is have the knowledge of how you treat a real topic with design tools. So I hope you.
Yeah, thank you. We will discuss everything, but thank you very much. And what about you, Ricardo Bonacho?
Hello, thank you. Well, I believe that if we are talking about defining a profile for a food designer for so long, it's because it is really a very important profession for the future. So these new concepts of food designer, if we are already talking about them, it is because it's important for the society and there is a need. So, but for me, because I'm a designer and I'm working in a school that has a profound tradition related to hospitality and gastronomy, and I have these two different universes where I deal with students from culinary arts and also with students from design. I believe that anyone can be a food designer, but there is there is a need that the education of this profile or this new profession of the future has these two knowledge from the two fields, design and food, because otherwise we are specializing in design or are specializing in food. But it is important that this holistic approach in the education of the food designer could be something that in the future will dissipate the idea that, for example, people nowadays have what is about food or what is food design or a food designer.
Great. Yeah, so all your opinions are great. I really agree with everything, but my point of view, at least here in Spain, where we do not have education about food design, and food design into design universities is starting now. It's true that we have a master's into food experiences, but into the degrees, we always have been like doing different projects, but without saying that they would be into the food design field. So it's a very unknown field. So from my point of view, anyone could be, of course, a food designer if they have some education into that. And also from my point of view, I think that this education needs to be transdisciplinary. So they have to know, like Ricardo was saying, about food and about design to be able to give like solutions to the food system and also to the world through design. Of course, we need them to have an undergraduate degree, or they have to have any formation, they have to have studied something about design. So that's why I think that maybe we should do this undergraduate program into food design, however. Well, great. So for you to know, on the survey, the question was answered, and the 50% of the people answered that a designer can be a food designer. So it's 50%, it's a lot. The other 25 said that a researcher, and then 12.5 people and 12.5 said a chef or anyone. So this is how it goes until now. So we were talking about which skills they have to have, but we will add this information later when we talk about how to be a food designer. And then we will jump to the second question. And the second question is, where does a food designer work? So again, we will follow the same order. So we will start with Sonia, and then Fabio, and then Julia, and then Ricardo.
Well, first of all, let me say that it's quite interesting, the 50% people saying food designer is a food designer, because it means that really it's so specialized file that need to be defined. So I'm the one also that answer food designer as a food designer. So I'm doing this not anonymously. But in the meantime, as I told you before, I believe we cannot call everybody food designer. So I really agree with my colleagues who said very good background in design really help to approach to the food differently, or on the other side, a very good background in food. But for me, honestly, this is not enough. On the other side, I think where it's everywhere. Really, the food designer can work everywhere. And if I can, Mariana, I want to use this question also to underline how me, you, and Ricardo and other two colleagues, Antonio Varela as well, created a no-profit organization to provide the proof of the fact that the food designer can work everywhere. And our idea was also to create the World Food Design Day on the 16th of October, in which we will ask people to show where they work. We want to see them in action, and we want to see them wherever they are. They could be in a design studio, but it could be on a boat. If they work on fishing, if they work on the way of producing new fishing system, it could be that they had to do their own research, their own work on the boat, on the sea. So practically, I believe what I want to underline is the fact that the food designer should be with people in the real life. It cannot work outside in a school, in a lab, because this doesn't work. Definitely, the food designer need to go through ethnographic research and very in-depth immersion techniques to understand what are the rituals, what are the practice, what are the also the action and behaviors that people do every day, to better understand how then to transform those in new product, in new services, new system. So later on, I hope we will have time also to underline how everybody can be part of these initiatives, but this is really the purpose, to show that food designers are everywhere and they're working in every level and layers of the food systems.
Great. Thank you very much, Sonia. So we follow with Fabio.
I agree with Sonia. Food designer can work anywhere in the food system, but I think it would be important for food designer to learn which nodes to work on, how to be strategic. I think part of the education of the training should be understanding where in the food system, it can be a private company, it can be, I don't know, a creative agency, wherever they are, what is the node where it's possible to introduce innovation and change? Because I think that's part of the mission of the food designer in some ways. Either the food designer lives it in terms of sort of an ethical mission to improve the food system, or just in the business sense of improving things. But one of the important skills is to understand what are the strategic nodes where I can get more done, where I can operate and have the largest result. It can be in a kitchen. It can be, I don't know, in a transnational corporation. It can be, as Sonia was saying, on a boat, rethinking, you know, fishing methods. It doesn't matter. But where on the boat I can do the most? Where is the node where I can apply my skills strategically to introduce innovation and change?
Great. Thank you very much, Fabio. So we follow with Julia.
Yeah, just continue maybe the speech, because it's very interesting. I agree fully with Sonia and with Fabio, because I think I would like to add food design is systemic. It's in itself, food is already a system, because we not only talk about growing, we already are in seasons. You grow something, then you eat it, and then you have something left over. So you're in a system, and you can have a very small system or very big system. You can have the micro view in a little kitchen or on a boat, or the macro view on a city or on a region, or even in in a land or in a country. So I think it was very interesting that Fabio said we have to identify where you work and what is your specific topic, and where you can have an impact, and where you can have an impact as a designer, because it's not us seeming something in the field. We will be more maybe in the translation, in the applications, to help to make a system work, or maybe at the end on a product. But as various is design, as various is also food design. So it can be also, one time can be an application, one time it can be a product, one time it can be a packaging, one time it can be a kitchen or a marketplace. So this is also because why I think food design is very interesting, because it's as large as all the other big topics like architecture and design. Food design can be everywhere. So, and it's just very difficult to choose one topic or one approach. And so this is more about why we do something. So it's more about meaning, or social engagement, or resilience, or sustainability. So this is the angle where we attack. And so this is also the big part we will discuss later. But I think it can be everywhere, and then we have to just ask why we do something. And Sonia talked about people, so I think social design is also very interesting, because important, because at the end we serve people, and we try to make a better design, a better food design than yesterday. And it's not anymore about nice objects and nice things to eat. It's really we have food design changed the last 20 years a lot. So we have a big responsibility also to translate this to students and to society. But let's start with our students. So I don't know if I answer, but I think it's very interesting, this ongoing discussion.
Great. Okay, so Ricardo, your turn.
Well, I totally agree with all of you, of course, because I was listening all of your comments, and I was thinking about this idea of the complexity that involves design in food. So we need to give them this complex knowledge to the future food designers and help them to find their spot. And also quoted here one friend of us from Fork, Pedro, help them to make and act in order to make a change on their spot. It could be a kitchen, it could be an industry, it could be an agency of design related to communication, but it is also important, and I would like to reinforce that it is important they have this knowledge related to the complexity that involves the relationship between food and design. So I totally agree with all of you, of course.
Great. Thank you very much. So we will jump to the next question, and I will add my my thoughts on the next question so that we have time for everything. So the next question is, what does a food designer do? And I would like then you to try to be short in that sense, so that we can have like 5 minutes at the end to share and to talk about different things. So Sonia.
Well, I'm trying to summarize with two main things. One, I really believe the designer is the director of a team. So when we are trying to define this profile, really it's the one who is connecting, is the one. So maybe it's not just a profile, but you are a food designer if you are part of a team and you know how to manage the team correctly with all of the competencies they have and the experiences they have. So you have the systemic mindset, the circularity, the creativity, all of those capacities that really help you to creating a team that work collaboratively in a transdisciplinary way, as we mentioned many times. Secondly, let me add only this, we are now in Rome. on the middle of the pre-UN Food System Summit. And I don't think creativity was a key word in the way how they're approaching to food. So for me, it's time to think that the designer should do also that part, should actually be recognized as the one who is able to give concreteness on solution, on new system, and of course, helping also scientists, policymakers, and other people to think food differently. So for me, there is a do and will do soon, I hope.
Thank you very much. Okay, Fabio, your turn.
For me, the food designer, what does they do? What do they do? Again, wherever they are, and they've already, as I said before, thought strategically where they want to operate. But what they do is they apply a systemic way, not only of thinking, but also to operate. So I don't know, if you're in a kitchen and you have to come up with a new dish, the food designer helps the whole team, the chefs, the business person, the person that does the shopping, to think in terms, okay, where does this food come from? How is it experienced by the client? Where the leftovers end up? You know, so wherever they are, they should be able to add, but not actually add, so to organize, to coordinate the whole sector through systemic thinking, which is, it can be complicated, and that's why you require, you know, specific skills and specific experiences. But I think, you know, it's difficult to say what they do specifically, because as we said, food designer can work in any place in the food system, but how they do what they do, I think it's applying this systemic approach, both in terms of understanding what they do and also in the practice of what they do.
Okay, thank you very much. Julia, we'll listen to you.
Yeah, I will go briefly. I think to add, I really agree with director of a team and manager. And I think I would even say like chef orchestre, we say in France, it's like the maestro who's doing everything and coordinating. And how is he doing it? It's like he's using, we learn about methodologies and pedagogic tools and methods. So this is really, I think a lot of design tools really helps to do this work, and also a lot of coordination. So so this is maybe and yeah, maybe it's going too far, but before that you really have to have a phase of explore, research, and before doing this, you have to go to a phase of exploring and know what you're talking about, to being very close, experiment what you will talking about later. So this is also very important for a designer. So you have this exploration phase, and then you can do this managing part. So just these ingredients is really something needed in the design master or design competences. Yeah, and so I wish everybody's going out as food designer has these orchestration skills.
Thank you. Okay, Ricardo.
Well, I totally agree with you, but I would like to say that probably they need to think about the context, where they will work, and then they have to act not only as mediators, but also with actors, with all the stakeholders and the people that are involved in the project that they are developing. Besides, there could be a kitchen, could be a food industry in the department of R&D, it could be in a publicity agency, wherever they are. I think they have this kind of mediator and actor role to their future profession, of course.
Great. Okay, so we will jump to the last question. So we have talked during the whole time that we've been talking about what a food designer is in general terms. we've talked of who can be a food designer, where does a food designer work, and what does a food designer do. So how to be a food designer? I mean, if there's people watching us and thinking, yeah, I would love to do that. How can I, achieve to do that? What do I have to do? Where do I have to go? Who do I have to talk with? Where do I have to study? Can we hear you? So, Sonia.
Definitely. Let me also say, in my affiliation, I'm also the director of the Future Food Academy right now, and I did this kind of question many times. I mean, they ask me many times where I have to go to study if I want to be a food designer. And for me, first of all, let me just say, because maybe my colleagues will make a list and will provide you a list of potential track and career, academic career that you can take it. Let me add this part at the beginning. You have to work a lot on your mindset. That has to be systemic first. And secondly, there's a great explanation we use at the Future Food Institute, which is like looking for dormant resources. So you don't invent anything. Don't feel that you want to invent new things and this is your purpose, but instead you have to search in what is already there, what we need to excel for having a healthier and more sustainable food system in the future. Then I always say, first of all, try to get in a new mindset, how to see the food and how to see the relation between humanities and food, and see this in a future term. So what we want to create for our future. And secondly, there are many masters. It depends where you are, what you want to focus more. You are more interested in gastronomy, you are more interested, what is the entrance you want to get through? You want to go from production, you want to go from distribution, we want to go from consumption. Then, of course, following this, you can find the perfect master or degree or certificate. There are many now all around the world. But the first point is, what do you want to do with your creativity and with your design skill? Then search for the best track for you.
Great. Thank you very much. So now we'll listen to Fabio.
In the US, there is no specific food design career, no food design school or masters. So in the US, either you start, you do your food studies or gastronomy or design, and then you find your own career working in some companies or in the private sector, public sector, or you go to Europe. And so many Americans that are really interested in food design end up in European schools. So if there are any Americans listening now, check what's going on in Europe if you really want to get a specialization in food design.
Thank you very much. So Julia.
Yeah, just shortly, a lot of roads lead to Rome, I think we say in German. I think you can translate it like this. There's so many ways to come up as a food designer. There are a lot of masters and other ways to go it. We have the École of Design of Nantes, we have a food master, but there are so many others. So I think if you really want to do it, you can find it. And yeah, that's it.
Great. Okay, so Ricardo.
Well, I would say come to Portugal and Lisbon. We have a master in food design here working for the first edition. Now we are starting the second one. So if you want to work in the field of food and design, we are waiting for you.
Yeah, as I said, you come to France. No, we will. It's so great that we would also connect all together later on, but it's another topic.
Yeah. So mainly, I think that it's very interesting to hear you talking about all these questions. And I would say that it's very interesting to understand that we feel design is the basis of becoming a food designer. And that to be a food designer doesn't come from the gastronomy field, from your point of view, for what you have been saying. But what do you think about the qualities someone would need to have to be a food designer? I mean, do they need to be open-minded? Do they need to be flexible? What do they need to have? And I would say, open your microphones. Meanwhile, I will end up this illustration just to share at the end. So what do you think are the general skills? And then I invite you to share with us any other feeling that or thought that you think it's interesting. Maybe you could do like an open chat, but one by one. So, okay, so I invite Sonia in the same order like before. So we would have.
I don't understand if we do see like the sharing screen, because we don't see it
No,
now. By the way,
I'm finishing it.
So it's hard to do a list and a priority. I would actually choose the empathy as one of the key competencies and key skill that you can actually exercise. So empathy applied in many ways, and of course in a professional way.
Great.
For me, it's thinking strategically and systemically.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add some creativity and open-mindedness.
You are all stolen mind, so I would say empathy and creative, of course.
Okay. And what do you think about the gastronomy field getting near to the design world? I mean, when I talk to the big chefs or to the big, well, don't say big. I mean, when I talk with the chefs and with the industry and I say, yes, we do food design, what do you think they think we do? I mean, do you really think they understand what we do? No? What do you think, Fabio? You were saying
I don't think so. I don't think so. Very often they think about making the table more beautiful, maybe a plate in a different original way, or create new cooking methods, but they usually do not understand what we've been discussing in terms of food design.
Do you all agree?
Or they think you are a performer, you're an artist, and you want to do an event in their restaurants, which is another purpose they have. And you're saying, well, let's see how we can collaborate in this.
Yeah. Styling, food presentation, that's what they're thinking about, the designer in the kitchen. So
good. And what do you think we could do to change that mind? Do you think we could do something?
Publish, go out, be more visible.
Be more visible.
Really lack of visibility and pedagogic and to say, really, to communicate what is design. So what you did today, Mariana, it's exactly, I think, what we need to do more and more.
Thank you.
I agree. Communication, social media, writing for the general public, not just for the industry, but also for the general public to increase the comprehension of what food design is.
Great. Okay, so do you have any other comment you want to add?
No, I would love to invite everybody to be part of the Food Design Day, because that will be exactly the purpose, to show everybody what design can do in the food system. So I would invite everybody to go to Fork website and to check it, because this is the purpose of the platform we created.
Okay.
Great.
I hope to see you soon.
Okay, so I'm gonna share now what I've been writing, and I'm gonna share in 2 seconds. Okay, so let's see if you can see it. Can you see this? Yeah, do you see the green man?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So this is some of the words that came out of all this chat today. So we were saying that a food design should be a designer, like in a bigger and a first place. You can see different sizes. And then also in yellow, some of the comments that you were saying that I added. So we were saying that it should be a designer, or it should have designer skills, a researcher then, and chef, or anyone in less percentage. And then it should be empathetic, flexible, and conscious. He should work. They could work in any design studio or private organization. This surprised me, and all the previous or any of the above. So it's aligned with everything we were saying. and works with people, Bubble, agri-food system, and works with all sectors also. And of course, works where you can impact and you can change. So this is interesting too. Then a food designer works with any project related with food, with social food projects. And you all agreed that applies a systemic way directing a team, but with education before, works with exploration and creativity, and has a concreteness and solution to think food different. And innovates with food and design, should do a master's. And no, society doesn't know what we do for designers. So there's a must of inventing kind of food. Sorry that I did a mistake there. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to end the session. And so I really thank you very much for your interventions. It was very interesting. And I would love to keep on working into defining this person, because I think that society needs it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ricardo.
you.
Sonia, thank you, Fabio, and thank
Mariana,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye. See you soon.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Great.
So we will close and wrap up this session. Thanks for sharing what is the view and your view of food designer. We talk about fluid spaces, these not big walls, these mindsets and curiosity. So we'll see you in the next phase, where we will see projects of Elisava and Este. So thanks for coming again, and see you during the day.
Ciao.